All right, so let's start with identifying what really sets vintage Ferguson tractors apart. I mean, you might think all these older models kind of look the same at first glance, but trust me, there are key differences that make each one unique. You know, it's like spotting a classic car on the road. It's the small details that give it away. Take the Ferguson TE20, for example. It's arguably one of the most recognizable models. Designed by Harry Ferguson himself, this was the tractor that really changed the game with the three-point linkage system. That's still in use today, by the way. But what makes the TE20 stand out is its clean, simple design paired with efficiency. It feels, well, timeless. Now let's talk about its close relative, the TO20. While it's similar to the TE20, the TO20 was actually built for the North American market. This guy had a slightly different engine and a few tweaks to handle local needs. And when placed side by side with a Ford 9N from the same era, you'd notice that Ferguson tractors just have this air of innovation, you know? Like they were built for more than just the farm. They were built for progress. Speaking of comparisons, the Ford 9N price list from 1941 gives us some fascinating historical context. Back then, the Ford-Ferguson collaboration meant you'd get essentially the same machine, but branded differently. It wasn't until later, after some disagreements, that Ferguson went completely on his own. And get this, there's this super rare Ferguson TE20 variation with an articulated 4WD design. Only 2 of these were ever made. Just 2. It's a real gem that popped up at an event called Ferguson Days 2024. Watching that thing in action, you can see how forward-thinking Ferguson's designs were. It's not just history, it's innovation that still feels fresh today. Okay, let's dive into what makes some Ferguson models not just unique, but downright rare. And I mean rare like you'd have to really dig through a treasure trove of farming history to find them. Take the Ferguson TE20. Remember how we talked about the TE20? Well, the TE20 is a slightly different variation. What makes it so special is how it was developed for export markets, particularly in Europe, where the agricultural needs and even fuel types were, a little different compared to North America. The TE20 really built on Harry Ferguson's vision, making tractors that weren't just functional but globally adaptable. Now, speaking of Ferguson's genius, you've probably heard about the game-changing three-point linkage system, right? This, it's no exaggeration, transformed farming in the mid-20th century. Before this design, attaching implements to a tractor was, well, a hassle. And even dangerous at times. The three-point linkage made equipment easier and safer to use, and it maximized the tractor's efficiency. Honestly, it's wild to think that something created way back then is still the standard today. I mean, what other piece of 1940s tech can you say that about? But it's not just the tractors, it's also the implements. Take the Ferguson Middlebuster. This is a rare gem of an implement that a lot of people don't even know exists. I came across this incredible story from a community member who restored one. They said it was almost like piecing together a lost puzzle of farming history. Tracking down the right parts, scraping off layers of rust. It's a labor of love, but also a way to preserve this amazing legacy. When it was finished, it looked like a brand new piece all over again. Pretty inspiring, right? And here's the thing. These rare models and implements aren't just sitting in museums or collectors' garages. Nope, enthusiasts all over the world are restoring them, and in some cases, using them on small farms today. It's like breathing new life into history, one piece at a time. Now, let's talk about restoration work. Because honestly, there's something so rewarding about bringing an old machine back to life. It's like uncovering a piece of history that's been hidden away for decades. And the cool thing is, with the right tools and guidance, anyone can get started. Take the Ferguson Tractor Shop Manual. This thing's an absolute goldmine if you're working on a restoration. It covers everything from engine overhauls to hydraulic systems, all in fine detail. It's super handy when you're trying to figure out some quirky aspect of these older machines that might not be obvious at first glance. And for anyone tackling paintwork, the Ford Ferguson paint codes are like your ultimate cheat sheet. Matching the original paint? That adds this layer of authenticity that, really makes a finished project stand out. But let me share a real-world example. There's this listener who reached out about their Ford 600 restoration. They walk me through every step of the process, from tearing down the engine to sourcing hard-to-find parts. They mentioned how manuals like the Ford 2000-4000 guide were pretty much their go-to throughout the entire project. And you know what? Their end result was incredible. It's the sort of story that really shows how impactful these resources can be. Not just for restoration, but for learning something new, too. Now, let's say you want to take things even further and dive into customization. This is where it gets, well, pretty exciting. Whether it's upgrading the lighting or adding modern hydraulics, customization is all about blending functionality with your personal touch. And if you're looking for inspiration or guidance, the Massey Harris Shop Manual is another fantastic resource. It doesn't just give you the technical breakdowns, it offers insight into the engineering principles behind these machines. Understanding the why behind the design can make your customization more thoughtful and, let's be honest, way more satisfying. And here's what's so inspiring about this community: the willingness to share knowledge. Whether it's manuals, forums, or even YouTube videos, there's this collective effort that's keeping these vintage tractors alive. It's like we're all building on Harry Ferguson's legacy together, preserving not just the machines, but the craftsmanship and innovation they represent. So, whether you're restoring a TE20 to factory specs or putting a unique spin on a Ford 9N, just think of it as your chance to connect with a piece of history. And that's all for today. Great talking, and I'll catch you next time.